towers are falling. SK cannot hold back the tide.
A year that I want to forget in a way, or a year of like mess ups and screw ups.
I never skipped any season. I think it's really important for me, and Diamond Works as well.
And Gambit will go to the promotion tournament.
Maus put up the fight of their lives, but in that last game, Dignitas edge ahead.
Well, at first I was like really disappointed. Then I saw the second chance, and now I'm like super hyped again.
It's frustrating to play relegations. For sure, we're like top 4 team in Europe. It would be amazing to beat Gambit, and it would be a big achievement for us to actually knock out an LCS team.
Since I found Gamers2, we've been working so hard to make this happen, you know?
It's going to be much more exciting since they're my old teammates.
I think we all want to win in SK really bad. I think we owe it to SK to like re-qualify.
This time Gamers2 has actually good players. Like I can lead the team to win.
And I have this one dream of qualifying to LCS.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 2016 European Spring Promotion Tournament, where 2 challenger teams have risen above the rest and are here to try and claim a seat in the 2016 Spring Split. A lot on the line here in our Berlin studio. As you see Ossel out there giving a pep talk to his team by the pool. Sadly no yacht in that pool, but I think it will work either way. And then on the other side we have SK Gaming setting up on stage for one of the most important matches of their lives. I'm Eva Schok, supporter, joined on the analyst desk by Mitch Kreppel-Voorspools and Martin de Fischo Lunge, as 2 long-standing LCS teams take to the stage with their pro status on the line. Very happy to be here with my favorite analyst desk guest, and Kreppel.
Let's start with a look.
All right, we're gonna taking a look indeed at the 2015 Summer Challenger bracket and see how these teams got here. Of course, Team Dignitas EU victorious in the summer playoffs and will find themselves in the LCS. That means we have 2 teams out of that Challenger bracket.
Yeah, and it was a very close final against Mousesports. Went all 5 games. All the Dragons ended up dying, like 30 of them, I believe. Mousesports in the end obviously didn't win, so Gambit are gonna face them. And then of course we have Gamers2, who managed to beat Denial 2-0. Very back and forth game, but in the end they managed to take the win. And very important for them, of course, as a team.
Yep, Gamers2 there, and Mousesports will be facing Gambit Gaming and SK Gaming because they ended up at the latest or the lowest end of the regular season bracket for the LCS. Of course, the Copenhagen Wolves were auto-relegated.
Yeah, very close there in the bottom parts of the standing. Gambit Gaming, the loss of Forgiven hurt them pretty hard. They were very close to Elements, almost hopped over to the 7th place spot. And then SK Gaming, they just didn't look great. They split the last split and honestly went downhill for them. Hopefully they can pick it up back today.
Yep, we'll go a little bit deeper into that a bit later, but as the higher seed, Gambit chose to face Mousesports, so SK Gaming will take on Gamers2 in our first match of the day, and immediately following that best of 5, it's Gambit's turn on stage, so get ready for a full day of games, possibly 10 games here today, and they'll all be played on 5.15, and as we look towards the 2016 season, we need to talk a bit about those changes coming up. Of course, the first heap of changes in 5.15 we'll be seeing here today. What for you guys will be the most important coming into this one?
Yeah, EO promotion is played on 5.15. That is not the Juggernaut patch that is out on different servers and different tournaments right now. So there's only mild changes. And basically 3 champions we're looking at. We're looking at Sivir, Nidalee, and Echo. 2 champions were nerfed. Sivir's on the hunt is a lot weaker right now. If you join later, you just don't get the full effect of that spell. If you look at Nidalee, still viable, but a little harder to land those spears as there's increased cost time on that Javelin toss. But Echo, less base damage, but more AP ratios. He can be played in the jungle. It's not Rek'Sai, so we shouldn't say she. Or in the mid lane as AP Echo, and I think it's viable. It's a little tricky, but it might be one of those, you know, cheesy picks or off the meta kind of picks that can come out and surprise people here in best of 5.
Even seen Cabochard take it to the top lane from time to time, maybe again. Otherwise, I mean, Fiora is enabled now, and she's very strong, and I expect to see her being played. We have some carry top laners. Again, we mentioned Cabochard. We have Smitty J from Gamers2 who could definitely play her. Not, of course, the strongest when it comes to engaging fights. She's not the big tank. She's a split pusher. She's super strong one-on-one, and I can definitely see teams, you know, build a combo around her and make her work.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping that we get to see Fiora under Rift today. But now on to the match at hand between SK Gaming and Gamers2 for a seat at the European LCS stage.
See?
In 2016.
How easy it is?
It's spreading. Quick.
First, let's focus in on SK Gaming, who will be on the blue side throughout today's series. Freddy122, Svenskeren, Fox, Candy Panda, Noxiac, and their coach, Danush. As we can see, a couple of changes in that lineup, but let's first talk about SK Gaming and their regular season. 6 and 12 is where they ended. In the end, still looking for a style that could define them in the 2015 season.
Yeah, especially earlier in the season, SK was a little lost. They lost Forgiven, replaced with Candy Panda, and they were looking for an identity, a style. How do we play? What defines SK Gaming? And they tried to find out due to multiple picks and playstyles. But in the end, they went back to like an SK Spring Light version where they had 3 pushing lanes. Yeah. Svenskeren started counter jungling, where he thrives, where he's a fantastic jungler. But it took too long for them to get there, and that ended in a very abysmal split. In addition to just late game shot calling problems.
Massive problem. They're way too inconsistent. Again, they tried to change up some of the picks. We saw Caitlyn come in for Candy Pen a few times, and they had a fine early game. I mean, on average, they went even in 10 and 20 minutes, which is good. But then they would get these leads sometimes and still manage to lose them. Like 5 games out of 12 losses, they were ahead 2,000 gold. That's a lot of gold at 20 minutes, and yet they didn't manage to close it out. And the worst thing is, that 20,000 or 2,000 gold went up to like 10,000 gold sometimes. And then Baron Call happened or wrong split push, and then suddenly the game was over.
No, shot calling definitely an issue for them. There is a new voice though in the team. Noxiac has stepped in for N-rated, and he is someone that we have seen both on the LCS stage and most recently on the Challenger stage as well.
Yeah, Noxiac had a bit of a playtime over in XD Hero. He went 1 in 5 there, so not a good result overall. But what speaks for Noxiac is that he plays more champions than N-rated. He's more likely to pick up a meta support. You know, the likes of Thresh could come out of him, whereas we were just so unlikely to see that from N-rated. Obviously, N-rated mastered Lulu, but it really wasn't, you know, enough for SK as a whole. So maybe that new champion diversity from the support role can enable other players, maybe jungle support synergy or even Candy Panda.
That's really the thing here, because the only champion N-rated had a positive win rate on was the Lulu. Everything else was like 1 and 2 or 0-3 or whatever, and it was very difficult for SK Gaming to break out this predictable pick and ban phase because it was so standard what they were playing. Freddy tanks in the top lane, the Lulu support for N-rated. So definitely needed some changes because again, you gotta make sure you can enable Svenskeren to be the carry for your team. So you gotta have some of these compositions where he can then gank for your lane and you can set it up very easily.
And Svenskeren in this matchup is up against someone who's jungled against a fair amount in the summer split in Kikis, of course, who was on the Unicorns of Love before, so he'll know him pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, Svenskeren had a fantastic season if we look at just the individual performance at the end, at least. Start, very tricky. He was trying out so many different champions. Kikis, on the other hand, we kept praising him for being the more consistent member on Unicorns of Love. Don't feel like we've seen the same performance on Gamers2 though from him.
Yeah, if you look at Svenskeren's champion pool, it's actually pretty funny when they looked at the stats. He has the most unique champion losses in the LCS, so he managed to lose on 7 different champions. Usually we praise people for having this wide champion pool, a wide array of options available for him, but that was Svenskeren at the starter split. He was looking for solutions, but just couldn't make anything work. And then surprisingly, when he went meta back to, you know, Gragas Rek'Sai and dropped these off-meta junglers, everything went fine for him, especially in addition to that, once SK starts playing triple push, they will allow him to invade, just look for pushing mid lanes, pushing bot lanes. That's what SK wants to do, likely to win this series.
And I want to see him play Lee's. I mean, we didn't see SK really play on 5.14 and now 5.15 either because it has been such a long break since the last game they played. That's his kind of champion. Pick these strong laners for SK Gaming. Put him on an early game jungler. He will get the job done. He will shut down Kikis.
No, Kikis has definitely played Elise the last couple of weeks as well, so we'll see how that pans out. Let's look at the rest of the lineup for Gamers2. SK's challengers for today is Smitty J, Kikis, Perks, Jesse, Hybrid, and their coach Ocelot. Yeah, Ocelot is their coach here on stage as well. He's stepping in for the first time. He is, of course, the team owner. A cool extra dynamic. Jesse, ex-SK Gaming player, Ocelot, ex-SK Gaming player as well, so quite interesting.
Yeah, Ocelot obviously will not have any more information from SK Gaming since it's been so long that he was part of the lineup. However, Jesse has played with a lot of these players on the opposite side of the rift, so he can, you know, exploit tendencies, weaknesses, even in champ pool or just preferences. Overall, maybe he can bring that information to the table to help Gamers2 close the gap against SK, because there's still a bit of a difference. Even though SK was lower end, you know, of LCS, they're still higher rated in my books than Gamers2.
Sure, but we did see Gamers2 have a fine split in Challenger. You know, they went 6-2, they got the first place, beat out Dignitas in the end to secure that first place, then went into playoffs, and everything really seemed to fall apart for the team, which was very, very surprising. But it is a team that's consistently made roster changes. Now, even with the coaching staff, Ocelot stepping in, but also again 9 different players has gone in and out of this team doing one split. I mean, that's too many. But it's also why it's so hard to judge them, because they keep making one change here, one change there. Kikis worked out in the start, but then didn't really perform in playoffs at all.
But at least they did get a third place then with Kikis,
Sure.
which brought them here. Let's take a look at one of the star players in that lineup who has been consistent in my eyes, is Perks, at least before the playoffs. He is someone that could be the carry for this team in this matchup.
He has been the carry for Gamers2. We know he's a very strong mid laner. It's always the European mid laner thing. We get so many small or new superstars coming
Is
in.
he Danish? No.
He's not Danish, but his AD carries. That counts for something. Yep. I don't think he was the big carry though in playoffs for Gamers2, and I think that was a little bit of a problem. I think Smitty J, on the other hand, they often look to him. He plays Riven up top, and he plays the carry top laners, and they might look for that style again against Freddy.
Yeah, we'll see. That is indeed a very important matchup, Freddy 122 versus Smitty J, because if we even just take a look at those champion pools, it is completely the opposite style for these two guys.
Yeah, Freddy obviously is what they call a tank player. He's just so consistent in his role, and his performance overall was a bit shaky in Summer Split, but if you look at Smitty J, he has to bring these more assassins, heavy damage dealers to the table. He also plays the likes of Rumble, so aggression coming out of Smitty J, defensive, slow but steady, lane control coming out of Freddy. However, I just really want to highlight, if Freddy goes back to the form that he had earlier in the days when he played at Worlds, for example, he was very predictable in his champion pool there too. Everybody knew what he played, but he just played it so well. Yeah. So if Freddy is in the zone, he can totally just outclass Smitty J, but can't get surprised, you know, if Smitty J picks up that Fiora or just has any other tricks up his sleeve. Can Freddy deal with it? Is Freddy a Fiora player?
I don't think he is. And we so often talk about flex picks as well, like Fizz, Lulu up in top lane and so on. I could see Smitty J play these kind of champions. Freddy, the only non-tank champ he played was Rumble one game. It was horrible. And then he's only been playing tanks ever since. So there should be a big difference in how Gamers2 should be able to draft. If Smitty J has picked up some of these new champions, the gang playing as well could be in there for him.
A lot will become clear after Game 1, but with a potential league shakeup on the line today, we want to know what you think. Tweet at LL Esports and tell us which player are you most excited to see in the LCS and why. As always, be sure to use that hashtag LCS. We're going to talk over your answers here later today on the desk. For now, though, it is time to get some answers from the minds behind today's contenders. So we're going to send it on stage where Pulse is standing by.
Thank you very much, Sharks. I'm here with Danush and Ocelot before they head to the Rift. Now, first off, Danush, coming into this team, you're very new to the team in general, plus Noxiac has joined the roster. How has it been like integrating into the team in such a short amount of time?
Well, I've been with the team for like almost a season now because I've been the analyst like the whole split. So for me, it's not like that new. And Noxiac just fit in really naturally because, yeah, was just fine. He has been doing a lot with Candy, and they're both German, so it was actually pretty easy.
Oh, very easy to integrate. Well, Ocelot, you're back here once again within touching distance of the LCS. What's different about this roster compared to the last ones, and why is this one going to make it to the LCS this time?
I think we definitely had the best setup up until now, you know, even since when I was playing before. I think the setup has the most potential to be actually a very good contender. So I really hope the guys, actually fingers crossed, for the guys to qualify. However, you know, guys, like we are very resilient, so despite the result, we'll be here then again and again and again, you know, if needed. So
until you get it, try and try again.
Exactly,
like it.
exactly.
Yeah. So last one here, Danush. You've joined the team now, and you guys have had a lot of problem throughout the split in terms of finding your own style and also gaining leads and not being able to finish out the game. What have you worked with the team specifically that has maybe helped that as we head into this best of 5?
Well, first of all, I think the meta right now is way better than it was like during the season. And yeah, basically we had some big problems closing out games, so we just got onto like late game shot calling and tried to fix it there. So yeah, in decision making and try to win games from a strategic point of view.
From a strategic point of view, I like it. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Best of luck on the Rift. And before we head to the caster desk, we're going to hear what it means to go from 2014 Worlds to staring relegation in the face.
And SK Gaming will push through, take down the Nexus turrets, and move on to the World Championships in 2014.
When we first started out together as a team, everyone has like so low expectations, but then we overcome like everything and we like managed to go to Worlds.
I missed out on Season 2 and Season 3 championships, so yeah, it was really great because Season 4 was like the championship to go to, so I'm happy I could go there.
I think this year, like, in my mind, I'm always gonna see it as like a year that I want to forget in a way. A year of regret.
Frederick's gonna come in, try to get the steal off, throws the big barrel, he's able to get it! Freddy, Svenskeren, they're going low. Could we see SK wiped off the map? We might just.
It's really hard that last year we were going to Worlds and we were competing to be the best, and even last split. And then this split, everything just went bad. So yeah, it's a really hard feeling and it's really disappointing.
SK Gaming has had a lot of troubles finding success so far.
Yeah, it was really crushing. We played for the relegation spot, and it's like really important for you as a player because you wanna like still prove that you're worthy of LCS.
We all took a break and we could like reflect on what happened this split. And at the end of the day, even though we had a lot of issues this split, everything we are now is because we joined SK like 2 years ago, and that's how we're even in this point and how we went to Worlds.
It would mean a lot to win against Gamers2 in the promotion. To kind of finish the whole bad thing with like on a good note.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the EU LCS Spring Promotion Tournament between SK and Gamers2. You saw the shot there of Jezzes and Candy Panda, once teammates from 2014, now enemies going into 2016. I'm joined by James Stress O'Leary, the Prince of Wales, as the teams are on stage, loading up for our first best of 5.
That's never going to die, is it?
I sincerely hope not.
Well.
I sincerely hope not.
You know, one team that doesn't seem to want to fade away, when it comes to Challenger and trying to make their way into the LCS, we've heard a lot about SK. It's Gamers2.
Yeah.
So many times they found themselves so close to being in the LCS, but they certainly don't want to give up. And Ocelot said it, they're very resilient. We'll see if this will be the time for them to get it.
It's the closest they've ever been. It is a best of 5 against SK. This is the closest series of the 2 promotion tournaments, in my opinion, today. And as you said, 4 times Ocelot and the team has tried to make it in there. Well, Analyst Desk mentioned it before we came on air. Ocelot and Jezzes, now Jesse, both former SK players. There's a long history between Ocelot played. But let's talk about the rest of the matchup. We are on patch 5.15 for the first time here in Europe. And what are we expecting to see?
Well, there's a key contested pick in Azir for the middle lane. That is something I'm expecting in picks and bans or the first pick to come out. The analyst has talked a little bit about Freddy and how we're not expecting him to play flex picks. We've seen that already one banned out now with SK taking Fizz away from the table. And very interesting, we have not seen a Rek'Sai ban in a very long time.
We have not, but we have not seen these teams either.
True, but
in a particularly long time.
I mean, Rek'Sai hasn't been one of the absolute must-pick, must-ban junglers. Sure, she's top tier, don't get me wrong, but there hasn't been a lot of focus for jungle in just, you know, the last few months while we've been on 5.14.
Yeah, what we did hear, though, also from Analyst Desk, and remembering SK, when Sven went back to the Rek'Sai and Gragas at the end of the split, those were his best performances, maybe outside of the odd Lee Sin game. So maybe Kikis and Gamers2 afraid of it. We do see Gangplank taken off the table. Fiora, Riven are still up. Braum is taken away, which is something we've seen from at least the European LCS qualifiers and NA. And another jungle pool hit with that Elise.
At this point, you'd be looking at trying to get G2 to either ban the Azir or something like a Victor here and first pick the other. G2 are in such a rough spot. The other option they could go to is if they even remotely feel like SK are playing the Fiora, that might be one that would be banned. But continuing the jungle theme once again as Lee Sin gets banned out. This is the picks and bans phase, specifically bans that just has not been the case for very long because there are so many strong junglers that you can't ban out enough. As you said, though, Svenskeren is a very... this picks and bans phase is completely different to what we were expecting from 5.14. You know, Svenskeren has been heavily targeted. We're expecting now, I would assume, like a Gragas or a Nidalee to come out from him.
Yeah, we'll have to see what Sven decides to first pick. But for SK, sticking with old trends, despite the fact that it was primarily N-rated playing the Lulu in the summer split, the substitution for Noxiac, there is still a high priority on that champion. Maybe SK are playing around that playstyle still.
To put that in perspective, 6 times SK Gaming played Lulu, and all 6 times it went to N-rated. There was never a Fox or a Freddy Lulu game. So
I mean, clearly a bit of a change-up unless they've got Noxiak and they're just saying, yeah, you can just play Lulu again. Wow. It's fine.
We'll find out what they decide. What we do see, as you've mentioned already, Stress, the Azir was left open. Gragas is still up. Kalista, a high priority here, that is going to get secured. Remember, 515 Sivir did take a hit to her ultimate, so let's see if Candy Panda still wants to play that, considering Candy played quite a lot of those wave clear ADCs, the Corkis, the Sivirs, etc.
So for that Azir, talking of Perkz in the mid lane, a very young player, but a lot of experience. Perkz has been playing for a very long time, despite being, I think he's actually only 16 still, will be 17 very shortly, but you know, he's just such a flashy player. He plays a lot of Azir, plays Jace, and is a big young talent to look to for the mid lane role. So I'm surprised that he's been allowed the Azir, but then again, it is game 1 of a best of 5. Maybe test the waters, see what Fox has got for him, and see what SK can do to handle it.
And from a stylistic point of view, Gamers2 throughout the summer series also relied quite heavily on their solo lane as a Perkz and Smitty J. So it's nice to see Jesse playing that Kalista. It'll only be the second time that we've seen it in summer, and he will be going up against a scaling ADC in Candy Panda's Tristana.
So we're kind of expecting, speaking of the solo laners, Smitty J to look perhaps towards the Fiora. It's his style of champion. I just wonder, going up against a player like Freddy, who he loves his tanks, and a lot of what we've seen into Fiora recently in LPL, in LCK, is champions like Malphite, who, okay, maybe they don't, you know, out-damage Fiora in any sense of the word, but they can just stand there, kite around Fiora, and prevent her from diving into your backline. But speaking of diving, there's one champion we haven't seen in quite some time outside of North America, and that is Kha'Zix. He likes to get in the backline.
Well, he likes to try, anyway. Kick is subscribing to the high school of regional qualifier jungling. Gonna get his hands onto the beast.
The problem is, you've got a Tristana and a Lulu and a Gragas on the other side of the matchup now, already. This is a tough matchup to get into the backline as it is. If you get there onto Tristana, Lulu Ultimate's going to come out. The option of Shen is still available for SKT. Maokai is still up as well. All champions that Freddy has played, and that has become a very difficult Tristana to kill for a champion like Kha'Zix.
It will be, and SK have got a fairly thematic team comp. Lean back, hope Candy Panda can carry, and then give him all the shields and defense from every other lane. That'll be a mid lane Lulu for SK Gaming. Whereas Gamers2, they've kind of got good poke with the Azir and Kha'Zix. They kind of want to go all in with Thresh and Kha'Zix a little bit, but it's a mix and match team composition. There's not a lot of innate synergy between all the champions. Maybe they do pick comps exceptionally well. That would be the strength of it. Not a lot of reliable hard engage. Not a Gragas, not a Alistar, with the Lulu speeding them up either.
For sure. Now, we have to look now. Do they opt towards something like the Fiora, something that they can put Smitty J off in a solo lane and say, you know, okay, so we don't have reliable hard engage, let's just not really engage. Let's just go split push style and try and get something the other side of the map. But there is the round out of the engage. It's going to be 2 tanks in the top lane, a little bit different from what perhaps we were expecting in game 1 of the series, but Gamers2 showing that they want to play it patiently now with a Maokai in the top lane. I'm looking towards this jungle matchup. If Kikis looks to just go for the 1 versus 1 against Svenskeren, that's one thing that Sven's been very good at in the tail end of the season, is finding the enemy jungler 1v1 and actually taking the better trades. I wonder whether that's what Kikis wants to try and match him at his own game with.
Kikis will have a lot more pressure as he is on stage once again since leaving the Unicorns of Love. You can actually see the stock standard scarf around Kikis' neck. And we'll see whether or not Ocelot picks up one signature man. But a bit more seriously though, for Kikis in particular, he looked great when he joined Gamers2 at the end of the regular season of the Challenger Series. And then during playoffs, in my opinion, somewhat underperformed. Didn't quite wear his carry pants as much as he did during the last regular games.
I think that's very fair to say, and especially, you know, Gamers2 came in kind of shocked the challenger scene by, you know, they slowly accrued wins, but beat Team Dignitas EU twice in the end of the regular split. So, you know, Gamers2 have shown that they can stand up to tough competition, but now is the true test.
Yeah, it will be indeed. If you guys on home would like to let us know who you think will win, jump on Twitter, tweet at LOL Esports with hashtag SKWin if you feel they will re-qualify for 2016, or if you think Gamers2 will jump the hurdle for the first time in 4 attempts, hashtag to win. It is a best of 5 for a spot in the LCS next year. And team compositions that are a little surprising. Something that we saw from SK towards the end of their split was the, as the analyst SDM did, Spring Split Light version, 3 pushing lanes. Not necessarily hard pushing, but Lulu's going to do okay. Tristan's going to do okay. And eventually, Freddy will get some ability to shove lanes down. As you can see, SK going for an early invade.
Eventually. As a reminder, 5.15, this is not the Juggernaut patch, so different itemization. I wouldn't expect too much out of Freddy. We've seen Shen's elsewhere around the world building all kinds of crazy stuff, but in this game, on the other side of the rift for Gamers2, it's an interesting one because so much of their game plan was always put a lot on Smitty J's shoulders, but now they've turned to Kikis for more of a carry style. So it's something that worked for them in the games against Team Dignitas. He was playing the likes of a Rengar, got himself ahead. Now on Kha'Zix, it's a champion that outside of High, as we said, just haven't seen all that much because he kind of needs to snowball fairly heavily in order to get himself into the game. You need to get in the backline and annihilate somebody before you get completely pushed out.
And we heard Kikis saying in the intro video as well that with this team is a lot of talented players. He can lead them to victory. Guess you're only going to lead from the front with a champion like Kha'Zix that wants to jump in there. Hope that you're going to have Perks and Jesse following up as well. So with the deep vision that SK accrued, looks like they are setting themselves up for a lane swap. You can see both Candy Panda and Noxiac in the top half of the map, whereas Jesse and Hybrid, they have in fact started on the Gromp in the bottom half. So a lane swap scenario initiated by SK, which is something that should give them a small advantage considering the number of lane swaps they would have seen and experienced throughout an entire LCS split.
Yeah, certainly when we saw Gamers2 in lane swap scenarios, they couldn't always keep up. One thing we did see with Challenger is in the beginning of the games, teams were a lot less consistent with set plays at the beginning when it comes to level 1s, when it comes to lane swaps, and the tower dives that followed. So, I mean, experience, you'd expect it to go likely in SK's way. I do wonder, though, because obviously the Tristana and Kalista matchup was changed a good few patches back when Kalista received a few nerfs with regards to her AD ratio on basic attacks. So, I mean, Candy Panda not wanting to face off against Jesse is a bit of an interesting one because this is one lane that I actually feel like SK could be pressuring. Candy Panda, I feel like, should get the advantage on Jesse because Jesse is an AD carry that loves to go even in lane. And I just feel like SK could have played the lane out and ended up with the better trades.
So they opted to go for the tower instead. In what has become the somewhat standard sort of 3v0 towers. You can see both respective junglers. It's on their half of the map, but Svenskeren a little bit greedy. Technically on the side that is weaker. As we saw that small roam from Noxiac. So tower should trade shortly within the same time frame as one another.
Yeah, ever so slightly was in the lead for SK, but their minion line has run out. And this is what I'm talking about. Smitty J is the one to recall here and doesn't get the experience from the lane after the tower's about to die. Whereas, look, Freddy's the one absorbing the wave. This is what we've seen all of the top teams do, is give the experience to the top laner. You know, the likelihood of needing your bottom lane for Dragon in the next couple of minutes is actually fairly low, so Smitty J can stay down here, absorb the wave, and kind of look to reposition. Consider he has teleport as well, so you can prevent a play the other side of the map. Very strange that they would then end up looking for the 1v1, because now Maokai could be gankable, but it's mid lane.
Noxiac, he's flashed forward. Sven's come in with Perks as well. We did see Kikis finding Noxiac just before that engage, but everybody gets away with their lives.
Close call, but as you said, Flash was burned in that middle lane. Running Cleanse as well is Perks. On the other side, Fox running Ignite for himself on Lulu. So looking for that kill pressure just constantly again and again. But honestly, Fox's role in this team is not to solo kill Perks or even get multiple kills on Perks in lane. His role later into the game is just protect Candy Panda. That's what everybody's role here is. Freddy the same. Just put everything on Candy Panda's back and assume that he's going to be able to carry, which has been a good strategy in the past.
Yeah, and Candy's somewhat impressed. This is an early teleport, so let's look for the tower dive. Candy Panda flash and heal. There's no tower to fall back to. Freddy's going to follow up with the teleport as well. Jesse is stacking up those Rens. That's a flash forward from Hybrid. He gets the flare. Noxiac will be giving up first blood to Gamers2 Jesse.
Good first blood resulting from the actual swap that happened. The fact that the bottom lane stayed bottom for Gamers2 means they could actually punish SK for pushing up too far without their turret. SK were just caught sleeping there. Did not respect the teleport being available, didn't respect the wards out behind them, and you know that's just a fairly standard play for Gamers2 to actually pull off once they'd got the lane situation that they wanted.
And of course for Gamers2, getting ahead is integral to this team composition. If they ever fall behind, the damage to tankiness ratio, when you look at SK, who's got a Shen that's tanky, Gragas tanky, Alistar tanky, and the shields, then Gamers2 are in trouble. So good first blood, also on the man that needs to be dishing out the damage. Jez's. And this is a role that we don't actually see from Jesse all that often, because throughout summer, Gamers2 have relied heavily on their solo laners. The duo lane, I mean, to be honest, we weren't expecting to have a very large impact. So let's see if they can use this advantage.
And I think it sounds weird in the sense that Jesse has had games where he's just put up very good numbers, which, you know, is an unavoidable fact because Jesse's had good games, but at the same time, he just goes even in every single situation. But Sven, again, going aggressive onto kick, as you can see, this Kha'Zix's taking a lot of damage in the trades, and it's because there's so many members of SK around that you're never going to get an isolated target right now.
Yeah, really difficult to, and all that vision was being played with there. We could see Gamers2 spotting out some wards, but not all of them. And for SK, a couple of deep vision, a couple of wards for relatively deep. In the bottom half of that map, we'll give some information when this next blue buff will be available for challenge. And we are going to see the lanes now standardized. Candy and Noxiac, despite giving up a kill down bottom, clearing out their Krugs. And Freddy, doing what Freddy does best. Soaking up solo lane, trying to split push. Freddy really does like to make those sorts of plays. And I want to see whether or not the shot calling has improved, because Analyst S mentioned it. 5 games out of the 12 losses SK had, they were ahead at 20 minutes. I mean, either a bad objective play or a bad team fight call is what cost those guys. So we'll have to find out if they've resolved those problems in the few weeks off.
Well, we'll see when they resolve this problem, as we are in a pause. So one thing I kind of wanted to look at briefly as we head into this pause is itemization by Jesse. Strangely, he goes back, buys a Vamp Scepter after the First Blood, then sells it and buys 2 daggers. So not actually offering him many combat stats outside of just a slightly increased Ren damage, because he'll have maybe a stack or 2 more.
And in theory, in the early game, a couple extra hops maybe. So
yeah, sure.
Some possibilities to skip around a fight at the cost of damage.
Right now, he's not actually looking to trade that much. That's kind of Jesse's way. Is like, okay, you do you, I'll do me, and I'll just farm up and have an ever so slight lead.
Well, we do have a very brief break. I would like to remind everybody that the Worlds qualifiers are actually going on over in Korea and China. So it's IG versus QG. They were in their 3rd game, and KT versus Jin Air. I will actually be giving some updates once production lets me know the games are resolving, because those are 2 of the last 3 seeds that will be determined. International Wildcard qualifier will run later this evening once everything wraps up, and that's it. We'll know all 16 teams for Worlds.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait. I've loved watching the regional qualifiers the last couple of days. Seen some interesting meta stuff, especially on the 5.15, 5.16 patches, as we're on 5.15 here. Haven't seen it translate too much yet into this series. We're only in Game 1.
Yeah, we are in Game 1 of a best of 5 with another to follow. And of course here, regionally, locally, it's spots in the 2016 season that are up for grabs. So a lot to play for this weekend in competitive league. We did get that problem resolved. It looked like it was Jesse who was able to get that sorted quickly. Smitty J's jumped in on Freddy. That's a defensive flash already. So a successful gank from Kikis. And that's something we didn't touch on. The 2 tanks of Gragas Shen versus the tank damage dealer of Maokai Kha'Zix could go in favor of the Kha'Zix if he can get some of that isolation, taste of fear procs.
Yeah, possibly in the early game. I mean, I'm kind of looking at it. It actually for SK, the Azir is going to cause a big problem in the sense that, so now you have to kind of itemize for both Magic Resist and Nami. You can't just pick one because they got a Kha'Zix, which is a little bit unfortunate for SK. Depending on how far ahead G2 or SK can get, will kind of result in the tankiness. But those daggers for Jesse have been resolved into the recurve bow and into the Bilgewater Cutlass, so it was just a matter of time. He just wasn't really expecting too much more of a fight, didn't get it, so safely gets himself up towards that Blade of the Ruin King.
Yeah, nice and comfortable. And of course, with that kill that Jesse accrued, plus some CS advantages in the AD carry and top lane, it's a 1,000 gold lead for Gamers2. Towers are currently even, and I'm actually glad you talk about the itemization, because for G2, it's just buy armor. I mean, yes, Lulu's going to have some AP damage and, you know, will do okay later. But this is very much about keep Tristana alive, and if there's enough armor accrued on Smitty J, and what I imagine eventually Kick is, it's going to be quite difficult for Candy to burn through that front line. That was an optimistic death sentence from Hybrid.
Yeah, optimistic at best at that point, but Freddy's seen that play a couple of times. I think he was expecting that one. But the dual lane up in the top side does give the freedom for Sven to enter the bottom side jungle now. Talking of strong and weaker sides at this point. Yes, Kikis is in the jungle, but there's already a good few wards to spot him on the way, and that gives SK the freedom to, you know, throw down that bomb onto the tower, get it chunking, get it ticking, and take that tower down for themselves. I wonder if they'll rotate out to Dragon right after. Sven's taking the Scuttle Crab by the looks of it, just finished, while G2 do still have two people on the top side.
So trading tower for tower, and of course most likely giving up this Dragon.
Yeah.
SK going to be sitting pretty, playing towards Aspect, another thing that SK did fairly frequently in the summer split, looking towards those 5 Dragons, team fight to win, team compositions, something that could certainly help out their lack of damage. And this will be completely uncontested here. Gamers2, they are pushing relatively aggressively on the top lane. Got some good deep wards, so they may look for a dive or just get some tower damage on that top lane inner turret.
It's interesting that G2 would give over the Dragon this early on. It's actually one problem they had throughout Challenger, just in general, was G2 were one of the playoff teams that actually took Dragon the least. Compared to the likes of Team Dignitas or Maus, who, as we all saw in the finals, everything was about that Dragon buff. For G2, they kind of never really bothered about that. It was more about getting solo laners snowballing, opening fights up, and taking Dragon after it if it's available. So, you know, it's clearly not a priority for them once again. We'll see how that actually affects this series against SK, because SK want this game to go fairly good. I mean, sure, there's an Azir on the other side of it, but if you've got a Tristana with basically 4 utility champions around it, there's not too much better a position you can be in.
There isn't, but there's also such high risk involved. If Candypan is out of position or gets caught by Kha'Zix or Thresh, then all of a sudden, all of your damage is done. There's nothing left to fall back on, and there's a reason these sort of single threat team compositions have fallen out of favor.
Yeah.
We talked so heavily in summer about triple threat comps from a player perspective and from a team composition perspective.
I will challenge that slightly, though, because we did see Fnatic run a similar style in the European finals. We actually saw Jin Air run a very similar composition today with a Kog'Maw rather than a Tristana. So while they are out of favor generally, they still can work.
They can work if they can get the damage down. Sven eats a death sentence from Hybrid, and Kikis leaps forward. Nothing comes from that one, a defensive body slam out. So let's see how much wave clear does SK have to play with. That's something we've not expanded on a whole lot. Lulu, the primary wave click. Littlelance is already thrown out. Unbreakable will. That's a 4-man pulverize. Noxiac has found Kikis. The Emperor's Divide will try slow it down, but it won't be enough. The cask knocks Kikis back under the tower. Here comes Candy Panda. SK got their first kill of the series, and it was a well-executed engage from Noxiac.
Great engage from Noxiac, but the biggest question about this is Jesse top lane. Why would G2 look for a play like that? Sure, it was a hook and they were looking to engage from it, but you have to respect the Alistair ability to just flash pulverize in that situation. If you hook Noxiac and bring him ever so slightly closer to 4 of you, he's going to do that every single time.
Poor calling from Gamers2. Not having their AD carry with them, SK punished. Not only get a kill, but they also take a lead in the tower game, 3-2. Will also even out that gold deficit. So misplay there from Gamers2. And that was a good play from Noxiac's Alistair, the substitute player that's been brought in to replace N-Rated in the promotion tournament.
Which, again, as a substitute player, I mean, normally we talk about, you know, nervousness, but Noxiac, he's been on this stage enough, can land an absolutely beautiful pulverize onto 4 people. G2 stacking ever so, I don't even want to say slightly too much. That was just stacking far too much at this point. Like, if that engage happens maybe 15 minutes down the line, that's very likely an easy 4-0 for SK.
Get them resets. Tristana pentakills are plenty. That's what Stockholm taught me. Or at least potential pentakills. And of course for Noxiac, you know, when he was on the stage in spring with MYM, he gave the team quite a lot of direction. Especially when on champions like Alistair. Pretty good roaming, pretty good shot calling, and provided another level of threat, another level of engage for MYM. That's beneficial for SK when you consider Sven as the primary engage tool. Freddy normally follows up or teleports in. And of course, Noxiac now can add another layer to that dynamic.
So we're about 15 minutes in, and SK already starting to itemize towards armor. You can see Sunfire Cape has been finished on Shen, expecting Gragas to look towards a little bit of armor in the next couple of minutes. It's kind of problematic for Kikis in that he's picked a jungler that requires some sense of damage. Remember, Kha'Zix, when he was played a very, very, very long time ago, back Season 3, Season 4, could build a mix between tank and damage because he had damage reduction on his ultimate. That was taken off a very long time ago and no longer exists. So it's a champion that does rely a lot more on just his damage output and the ability to get onto a carry. And as we've alluded to quite a few times, the Lulu, the Alistair, everything is going to be there to protect the Tristana. It's all on Candy Panda's positioning. So now Gamers2 have to switch their focus onto Perks. Make sure Perks can get enough of a lead through this mid game to ensure he has the damage to deal with the front line too.
We'll find out if they can find that gear. That's Gamers2, of course, but for Kikis, small advantage in CS. And when we did see High play Kha'Zix in the North American Regional Qualifier, he went full damage. Hex Drinker into Hydra, was building towards Last Whisper. We can see a Phage picked up. I'm expecting that to become a Black Cleaver. Will be the most likely options. But for Kikis, it's not a big enough lead, as Sunfire Cape's already finished. We're expecting armor from Sven. That poke from those Void Spikes might not be more than just a tickle, unless he can accelerate quite quickly.
One thing I do like, though, from Gamers2, very early priority onto the home guard on the Maokai. Get those flank engages, catch out Candy Panda, catch out Fox when they're unawares. Make sure you can get the engage and get the fight started. So that is a good adaptation from Gamers2, something we actually see even top laners in the LCS miss out quite a long time into the game.
We've discussed the early home guards
we
in
have.
every region, and luckily Gamers2, they've got the support from home as well. You guys voting on Twitter. Let's find out if Gamers2 can even out the Dragons. Sven Skeren is hovering around. Gamers2 going to peel away defensively. Teleports up for both Freddy and Smitty, as well as the Stand United. And we can see Perks keeping Fox busy in the middle lane. Dragon goes on and smited away. Sven Skeren steps up, says, I don't care about Rend. I don't care about Smite. I'll have number 2.
How does that happen? I mean, you have a Kalista. Okay, Kalista didn't have the biggest number of stacks. Early Smite out from Kikis when it came to actually, you know, putting it in time with the Kalista. Maybe it was an early Rend by the looks of it too, but Sven's not going to get many easier Dragon Steals than that. Just miscommunication out from Gamers2. Easy Smite down from Sven Skeren, and that's the second Dragon of the game going over to SK.
And despite the fact Kikis has played on the stage, and so has Jesse, in fact, the pressure is there. You're now playing for a shot in the LCS, in the big boy leagues. The first little miscommunication. Actually, let's be fair, that's the second mistake from Gamers2 when you consider that mid-tower pressure from earlier on. So it could just be first game jitters.
Yeah, it could be. I feel like, though, they recognize that they can't let SK sit and farm just because of how well this Tristana composition is going to scale later on, and without Perks getting ahead, it's very difficult. This is almost an unusual situation for G2, that at nearly 20 minutes, Perks is 0-0-0. Fox has done a good job of neutralizing Perks' normal lane advantages.
We'll find out whether or not Fox can accelerate ahead. Still, even on CS, Deathcap after Athene's going to get some really big shields is the plan. And, you know, limited wave clear from SK, limited wave clear from G2, relying on those Void Spikes and the Azir soldiers, which of course are, you know, very effective as long as Perkz is in the right lane. But both of these teams may have some difficulty when it comes to knocking down towers unless they have an advantage or a map play.
So Void Spike's likely not to be upgraded until level 16 right now for Kikis. He's opted for the Q for now for his first evolution. Likely going to get the E for that reset as the second upgrade. That's normally what Kha'Zix used to do. But again, we haven't seen him outside of high.
No. Interference elite. We'll find out. Keep track on the skill order as this extended laning phase just continues, and both teams happy to farm it out. Quick update, I have heard from production the results of the Chinese regional qualifier game number 3. If you don't like spoilers, mute now. IG were victorious, 3-0. So we have another World Championship team secured. Sven and Kikis find each other, but nothing further breaks out, and we do see Kikis going towards that Black Cleaver itemization.
How do we tell people to unmute?
That's a great point.
I never understood that with like match of the day scores on BBC. They'd always be like, mute now. It's in a way. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, hopefully people will see that SK and G2 are in position in the middle tower, and they'll think to bring the volume back up, because actually G2 does back away themselves.
They did, not making the same mistake.
Yeah.
They didn't have Jesse with them. He was running up to the river, and they were respecting the threat of engage from SK.
Look at how much map control on the top side SK have as well. G2 kind of only own a quarter of the map right now. There's good wards kind of midway through the top side jungle. Freddy's pushed up, trying to stop Smitty from ever being able to get himself into the fight. And while there are a couple of decent wards on the bottom side, there's no real way for Gamers2 to actually make a teleport play right now, unless SK are kind of hanging around that red buff Wraith area on their own side of the map.
What I do like from SK, they are grouping up effectively, using the vision in the top half that you just talked about, and safety in numbers in the bottom half. But the problem is the wave's not working with them. The wave is all the way down in the bottom of the lane. So for SK, despite the ability to get to the inner turret bottom, they had no minions to work with either. So a little bit of poor pre-planning for that invasion.
Well, it's kind of because Jesse, while he hasn't been with the team, he's just kind of sorting out waves, pushing them, making sure that at no point is SK trying to push 3 waves like we saw them do all the way through LCS. It also has led to a CS increase for Jesse, a lead when it comes to being above Candy Panda. Still does have that kill from very early on, but this has been a very passive game so far. Both teams just kind of feeling each other out this early on. That mid tower will soon fall, but likely not this wave, as it will be cleared out by SK. But with Candy Panda down in the bottom lane now recalling, G2 will at least have the opportunity to get vision control over the entrance to the Dragon Pit, but don't seem to be opting for it. Look, there's very little jungle and support synergy here. They're the opposite sides of the river.
Working together on the same objectives. A minute until Dragon. This reminds me very, very heavily of Dignitas EU versus Mouse, the Challenger Series Summer Split Finals. Dignitas ended up winning and replacing the Copenhagen Wolves in the LCS, but that entire series was determined by Dragons. Saw more Dragons culled in that series than I've seen in most splits of the LCS. And with 45 seconds up, look, Scuttle Crab secured for G2. They don't have deep vision necessarily of SK's jungle, but that Crab will give them some control around the pit if they want to challenge for another Dragon. And the previous one was stolen by Sven.
Yeah, at this point though, G2 actually have a... Oh wow, Sven in from the side!
He's found Jesse and Candy's killed him! Gamers2 once again caught with their pants down. We do see Perkz throwing out those sand soldiers as the teleport from Smitty J was started and cancelled. He would have been behind enemy lines. And Freddy with the team thanks to Stand United.
SK have been using this low tower to just bait Gamers2 into the same play twice now. I mean, I didn't even see Sven coming in from the side at that point, and neither did Gamers2, because Jesse randomly stepped forward from the flash gank from Sven.
Yeah, Sven manages to catch his man, gives SK another kill, and gives them priority on positioning when it comes to the Dragon Pit. It does not look like Gamers2 will be able to respond in time. And if they do, it's going to be half-hearted. Jesse is going to be quite late to this part.
Yes, he absolutely will. Nothing he can do here. Kigis not even opting to challenge for it. They had vision control. Perks, mid lane goes for Noxiac.
Yeah, Perks looking for the tower, and Noxiac, the support, almost able to take him down. Dragon number 3 secured by SK. And SK are very happy by punishing G2's positioning.
And G2 are getting very impatient. You can see it just in their positioning on the map. With the areas they're going to, locations looking for objectives, they just don't want to sit back at any point in this game and look at what is the objective play. Kigis steps forward, they stack again. And again, SK have seen this play coming for a good few seconds here because Shen is already teleporting into the fight with his ultimate. That's Stand United there before SmittyJ could even start channeling his teleport, so ends up cancelling for Maokai in the end. So again, another situation in which SK have the numbers advantage in mid lane because G2 are trying to push onto a low health turret. Controlled
and calculated from SK Gaming. And Candy Panda just quietly accruing items, despite being down 25 odd CS, got his Shiv and his IH completed, with the extra tower and the kills, even on gold with Jesse. And he's got so many more tools to keep him alive as the fight continues to progress. Jesse's gonna at least rend that Bramble back, get the red buff, and Gamers2, rinse and repeat. Still looking for that mid-outer turret. Although this time, I think wisely going through the jungle to get some vision down before trying to go through the front door.
Yeah, make sure you got those flanks warded. Just don't allow Gragas to kind of just body slam his way over a wall and ult people. But they're looking for it again as he body slams his way over the wall.
They are.
SK really want this.
Aggressive they are. The charge is on Jesse. He's flashed. Death Center's going to connect to Noxiac. Noxiac's going to find Hybrid. Fate's Call will keep him alive. Jesse's hopping forward as he throws Hybrid back into the fight. Once again, Death Sentence connects. That means Sven is going to be singled out, but he's a giant man with a giant barrel. It will not be enough. Now Freddy's in trouble. SK overcommit into the jungle and are punished for the same mistake that Gamers2 made. 3 quick kills, and Gamers2, they might be looking for Baron.
So impatient from SK just after we praise them for punishing G2's impatience. This one isn't over yet.
Smitty's gonna follow Candy all the way through the jump. Buster shot will not be enough, and Fox is left as the last man standing. Gamers2 now in a 5-on-1. Up once again, peeling to Nash.
I mean, G2 used so much running away from SK Gaming that SK should have just pulled back and known that that was enough. That's all they had to do here. This Baron does have a lot of damage going down onto it. Fox is trying to run spoiler, but I don't think he can take out all 4. He will get Hybrid first, though.
Well, 1 kill for Baron. It's a trade that I'm always willing to make. Gamers2 now on the defensive. Fox has got Noxiac support, but nothing else. Gamers2 grab a 4,000 gold lead and Baron buff after punishing SK going aggressive. Here's a replay of that fight.
Man, Candy Panda at this point, look at how much they've got from this. This is one, maybe even the first Fate's Call we've really seen in this game, at least used aggressively, and SK just completely not respecting the Fate's Call. From that, Candy Panda's trying to back himself away, and they just play this game of balancing the fight, trying to just get as much chip damage as they can onto Gamers2, but again, SmittyJ, you've got to respect the Maokai here as well. You can't just go headlong into a bush and try to stop a team taking Baron after they've just killed 3 of your team.
And look at the items that have been secured after that big fight. Rylai's, Righteous Glory, Frozen Heart, a Last Whisper for Jesse. Gamers2 now have the tools to deal with that front line as well. More kiting power from Perks on that Rylai's Crystal Scepter. But let's see if it'll happen again. Kickers, this time, warding up the Raptor camp. Not going to fall prey as Gamers2 knock over the tower.
They've also got Baron minions, which would have done it just on their own right now. But now the siege is on for Gamers2. This is the kind of lead that they actually need against this composition, because Tristana right now sat on 2 items, does not have the 3rd one completed, unlike Jesse on the other side. Does have that Last Whisper alongside. Candy Panda is a long way off item number 3. Only sat on 400 gold from the amount he's been sat with the team. Hasn't been able to farm all that much. You can see the farm priority has gone over to Fox on the side of SK. And down in the bottom lane as well, we do have this 1 versus 1. Those Baron minions are going to do a fair amount of work to that time.
Yes, SmittyJ happy just to sit back and let the Baron buff empower his minion wave. Smitty usually playing a carry at this stage, playing the 1-4 style, but will be happy enough on Maokai, trying to pull attention. The rest of Gamers2 doing the smart thing, keeping the pressure up middle, while Kikis is going to shove the wave up top. So this is a 1-3-1, and there is enough disengage from Thresh and Azir to actually buy time if Gamers2 get jumped on. So I like this play, and I like the fact Gamers2 are adapting.
However, one thing we did see, I think it was when Maus played Gamers2 actually, that Gamers2 sat mid lane for about 4 minutes trying to push towers down and never really achieved anything. They ended up recalling and going back to mid lane. I think this was in the first round of the playoffs. And G2 have this propensity to kind of go mid and go, okay, it's going to work. And then it doesn't end up working.
We've seen that this series already.
Right, exactly. They need something to work for them here when it comes to the damage they get down. If Candy Panda steps forward like that, that will be enough. But it's the top side that it is working for them. This is the adaptation of the play that is making it successful.
Yeah, Kikis has already secured a tower. Look at the picture-in-picture. Smitty J has got the bottom inner turret down to 20% HP. Gamers2. They are keeping SK tied up in so many places. The Baron is allowing them to knock over towers.
And not only that, it prevents the SK gaming composition from ever working. Because you need the Tristana with the Lulu, with the Alistar, the Shen in the side lane to teleport in. If you don't have that, there's no way SK can reliably take a fight because none of the rest of their team has the damage to deal with Gamers2.
Yeah, that is certainly the case. Nor they have the wave.
Candy Panda
has bitten off way more than he can chew and donates a kill to Candy Panda. Not respecting the vision or the control of the jungle. So another misplay or misposition. Won't give up a kill. Once again, guys, if you are in do not like spoilers, mute for 25 seconds. We'll put a timer on this one. I've adapted. The results have come in from LCK's regional qualifier. And the third seed, once again, mute for spoilers, from Korea is KT Rolster. They took down Jene 3-1, which means there's only one team left to qualify, and it will either be Pain or Chaos Latin Gamers on the international wildcard. That will take place from Chile, maybe, I think it is, later this evening. So we'll find that out. And we can get back to LCS, where Gamers2, Baron buff has worn out, but they got themselves a dragon, they got themselves a tower, and they got themselves, once again, the lead that their team comp needs as we've gone over 31 minutes. Last Whisper picked up for Kikis, so he's all about the poke.
All about that damage. And, you know, as we said, if they manage to split SK up, that's actually going to work out fine for them because the sum of SK's parts is what they're looking for. However, this time Gamers2, their Baron buff has expired. They're looking to group mid. This is the problem we were talking about. We've seen this backfire a couple of times. So that is fast damage onto the tower. Perks may be caught here.
No, it's Hybrid and Jesse that are caught. In fact, Sven turns his attention. Candy gets the reset, finds Perk. Emperor's Divide will not be enough. Candy flashes forward before Rocket jumping backwards, and Gamers2, they've been flanked, they've been found, and they are going to get killed. There's a Lantern available for Smitty if he can click it. He's gone forward, he's looking for the Lantern. He rides it all the way forward. Candy Panda's got the movement speed increase. He's got the Lulu empowered minions. He's looking for Hybrid, looking for the hits. He's going to get the flash out of Hybrid as a taunt from Freddy will get the kill. Killing spree for Candy. A double kill for Candy. He's 5-1-1.
That's an exceptionally tanky Maokai, but it doesn't matter in the end of all things because SK punish Gamers2 again. The same type of play. 3 for 3 in this game. G2 have grouped middle lane and tried to push a tower, and again SK punished them.
This is going to be catastrophic because the wave clear from G2 is so reliant on Perks putting up soldiers before SK arrive. SK will break open the base, but be unable to secure the inhibitor thanks to the low death timers. And for another time this game, maybe not respecting the engage. I feel like Gamers2 maybe either mistimed Sven's flash or simply forgot about it, because look at this engage. Sven, another body slam flash, and he finds 2.
Yeah, he just is constantly finding these engages. You know, we talked about it. It's our featured matchup of the game between Sven and Kigis, and Sven is having a massive effect on starting these fights. It just snowballs out of control in favor of SK Gaming. Smitty J stayed along for so long here. He had the Frozen Heart, had a Righteous Glory at this point, and Ninja Tabi for a long time in this game, but it doesn't matter. If all of the damage is dead on his team, there is nothing that G2 can do in these fights to kill Candy Panda. And that was the problem when we looked at it in Champion Select, when it was Tristana, Lulu, and Gragas locked in, and G2 lock in Kha'Zix. You've locked in a jungler that has no utility outside of the ability to dive a backline champion when there's enough protection on the backline to make sure the Tristana is safe. What I will grant, though, is there were a lot of jungle bans. Elise was banned, Lee-Sin was banned, Rek'Sai was banned. I still don't feel like Kha'Zix is on the same tier of utility in any stretch of the imagination.
No, certainly not utility. Is bringing damage, but it didn't matter because he didn't get ahead. For Gamers2 now, Stand United is available. They're trying to get control of vision around Baron. Let's see how this dance plays out. Stand United is available for Freddy.
Teleport already coming in with the home guard, so...
That is the quickest lantern click I think I've ever seen. Smitty J is a giant tree. He's drunk that elixir of iron. With teleport used and Freddy still split pushing with teleport and Stand United, technically there's more options here for SK. Let's see how they handle the pressure mid lane.
This is the same thing again. I mean, there's no flash on Sven right now, but this is the same thing again. I've seen this one already enough times this series that I don't want to see G2 just group here, because honestly their composition just doesn't need them to group as 5 on this mid tower against all 5 of SK. They're losing a tower for it. Now comes the engage though. When will Freddy TP in?
We're about to find out. Noxiac's gone huge. 1,000 HP from that Lulu Wild Growth. Candy's got the first as Perks has taken out Sven Skeren. Perks has found a second onto Noxiac and Smitty J's on the front line. That tree will not go down. That tree will not get shut down. Fox will find one back. It's a messy 5 for 3. But Perks and Jesse, the damage dealers, are alive and they're shoving down middle.
Look at the better positioning of the fight for Gamers2. They lock the front line into just a contested battle with Perks, where the soldiers are chunking through them. And Smitty J was 1 versus 2 for the entirety of that fight in the backline. We saw in the last fight how long it took Candy Panda to actually kill Smitty J. It took even longer in this fight. I actually don't feel that Candy Panda was doing any damage at all. He had no last whisper for that fight, and it meant that he just couldn't get through the bark of Maokai.
Certainly could not. And here's the replay of that. So we'll keep an eye on Candy Panda's positioning, as well as exactly what time Freddy rocks up. But Noxiac just got chunked so early.
He lost half of his health before this fight even started. Stand United actually went on to Noxiac as well, because they were trying to get him into the fight. Look at Smitty J on the bottom side of your screen, holding both of the damage dealers of SK back, and he still doesn't even die. Right up until the very, very last moment of that fight.
Unfortunate for SK, and of course when you're using your Wild Growth and your Stand United's on front lines of supports, you're in trouble. Dragon was picked up for Gamers2. Baron's going low. Gamers2 are close enough to start a fight if they want to, and look at the flanking. There's sentence onto Candy Panda. He's played backwards. Hybrid has found the only damage from SK. With him down, SK do secure Baron, but this could be game. Emperor's Divide locks SK in the pit. Gamers2 is going to ace SK Gaming and peel for the Nexus. Game 1 of this best of 5 is surely going to Gamers2.
An incredibly greedy play, looking at the time that it would take for G2 to take the Dragon compared to the Baron. SK just completely give all hope of this game away. They have a composition that all they had to do was just protect Candy Panda, and he gets hooked in, tries to get the Baron, and that's the end of the game for Gamers2.
Gamers2 from the Challenger Series have taken the first game in the series off of SK. Exceptional team fight at the end, but both teams not fully respecting their opponent's power and engage potential at different stages in the game, because that swung back and forth.
Oh yeah, that is so fair to say. I mean, as you said, good last 2 team fights out from Gamers2. The last one was an easy one, because you got the hook on the Tristana. I feel like this game was just so much messier than we've seen both teams play. I mean, we've seen SK make bad calls like that. Actually, that was the quintessential summer split play from SK.
Yep. Forced Baron.
The more I think about it, they go for a play that they don't need to make and lose the game on it.
Because they weren't that far behind. Leading up to that Baron fight, gold was relatively even. Yes, there were super minions, pouring through the middle lane, but for SK Gaming, they had options available to them. I do think the team comp is a little different. That mid lane is the first time we've seen it on Fox ever. Very, very reliant on Candy Panda, and that can work, especially against some less experienced teams from the Challenger Series if they're not used to dealing with a single threat and finding him. But Jez has played around these team comps, has played around these guys. Kikis has played on teams that have relied on single players to work effectively. So these guys have a lot of experience to deal with it. And for Gamers2, a good showing in the first game in the series.
It was from maybe a solo play style. I mean, Perks in the end ended up getting pretty huge himself. But, you know, it's only game 1. We'll see what game 2 has for us. But we'll also see what our analyst desk has for us. As Shox is joined by apparently her favorite desk guest.
No need to be salty. He's just a guest. You are my partner. You know, you're always there for me. So, all right, glad we got that cleared up.
All right.
There's no room for feelings in analysis.
There's no room for feelings in analysis, so we're going to drop down and get right into that analysis. Start with game 1, what we learned. Coming out of picks and bans, nothing too crazy. And that first pick, Lulu, out of SK, of course, a very highly contested pick.
Yeah.
But it's quite funny that we go back to that.
First time we see SK without N-rated. Obviously, playing it as a support, having that Lulu pick, went to the mid lane. I was not a fan of the performance. I don't think Fox is a very good supportive mid laner. And we saw in some of the fights his ultis were off or shielding or whatever. But the compositions itself here, first of all, we mentioned how we didn't expect it to be Gangplank and Fizz and so on and Fiora for Freddy in the top lane. 2 of them are banned away right here on blue side. That's very, very, very bad for SK. They have to consider banning these already on the blue side. And then the composition, it's all about Candy Panda. And it's too much, in my opinion, about Candy Panda. He's the only damage dealer right here.
Yeah, we talked about it in the pregame. How is Freddy going to play? Is he going to play tanks again? Yes. SmittyJ, is he going to play carries? Didn't. He ended up playing at Maokai, had an early home guards. So fantastic to see that picked up in Europe finally. Overall, the composition from SK Gaming was too one-dimensional, and it led to being countered. What I like to see is Lulu plus a hyper carry plus another damage instance. If you play Lulu mid, that means you have to play a carry top. For SK Gaming, that's going to be rough since Freddy doesn't play that. So in that sense, they put themselves behind, in the pick and ban phase.
Yeah, and then if we look at the composition from Gamers2, obviously the point he had the Kalista Thresh lane, super strong Azir, fantastic laner. Maokai is good into Shen, so they had lanes that could push, which could set up the Kha'Zix to start invading in. That was the reason behind the pick. They didn't get to use it at all because there were too many mistakes in the early game. But once they got late game anyway, Maokai can take out the AD carry basically one-on-one, just at least prevent him from dealing any damage, and then you have so much more damage with the Azir.
Yeah. Good summary, but let's dive a little bit closer into the early game lane swap, more specifically as that set up a lot of the plays that would be happening throughout the game.
Yeah, some interesting things to note here is the fact that SmittyJ actually based here, and traditionally we see top laners get the wave bounced to them, so he goes top.
So in this situation, what normally would happen is the jungler would then go top. As you can see SmittyJ on your minimap, take this wave that's pushing against Freddy. The jungler would be there and gank him and shut him down. So this is not a smart swap by Gamers2 in any way, but Svenska decides to go mid because they're trying to set up a gank at the same time.
This in turn leads to SmittyJ pushing up the wave and going bot. Again, this is where Smitty can get punished, but watch this teleport in the bottom of your screen. Shen from Freddy should not land that teleport. They could have traded that kill on Noxia for a massive lead in top laner push advantage, farm CS advantage. So a couple of mistakes from both these teams coming out here in the early lane swap. And then later on, we see Gamers2 finally swap their lane back to the top lane to take that tower, whereas in my opinion, they should probably be more looking for a skirmish. So questionable approach to the early to mid game from both teams.
This is what we talked about, how when you play against Shen, especially once he's level 6, you don't really want to fight on the opposite side of the map with him teleporting in. So it seemed to me what the call was to say, go top, we can take tower easy, we trade it, but we open up the map so the Kha'Zix can get his one-on-one, the Kalista can get her one-on-one, so we can open up the skirmish. But then the problem is, your next move cannot be start suddenly grouping mid lane and sieging, because that it will never work for you. You have to use that open map, because you just traded for it, you just went top, take that tower away from Freddy, who again, as you said, didn't use his chance at all to get a massive lead.
And this is something we've seen before from Gamers2. They group up in the mid lane, they siege when they're not running a siege composition. Beautiful 4-man power blast from Noxiac. And this is not the only time this happens. This happens later on in the game as well.
Yeah, and right now here as well, Kalista's sitting top lane farming. Why would you ever go mid lane? Second time around, again, you have a Kalista, you have a Kha'Zix, you have no way of really sieging down a tower. What does SK do? They get an engage, and now, because Candy Panda is standing at a tower as well, there's no threat on him. Nobody's ever going to kill Candy Panda or shut him down, so he just freely gets to kill whoever he wants.
And the way these replays are lining up, it does give the indication that SK is going to win this game, but no, Gamers2, they came ahead because they actually started playing plot twist to their strengths, which was kiting in these team fights and getting rid of the one-dimensional threat that is Candy Panda. In some of the fights, we have SmittyJ teleporting in and with his home guard and connecting Twisted Advance, and that's all it needed. We have one more replay, and this is one of the final fights here. This is SK committing to a Panic Baron. Previous to this, Gamers2 won their second fight of the game. Big team fight, got a couple of kills, and here again, Candy Panda drops immediately.
Yeah, again, but he's getting no help. First of all, you all 5 clump into the Baron pit. You can stand on the outside with your ranged champions at least, so you have a way of kiting back. There was no assistance from Lulu at all, so obviously Candy Panda, once he gets caught out, he's down. And really just this game here, it was so back and forth in many ways. There was small mistakes here, then one team didn't capitalize, and then we had these team fights back and forth as well, where SK were either over-chasing for kills where they didn't need to, and then the last one here where just the Maokai can single out the Tristana, and then the late game damage of the Azir is enough to win.
I hope in watching back this game that SK goes and sees where they could have punished SmittyJ a lot harder in the earlier stages of the game. And for a notorious, say, hyper-aggressive, player, he played a Maokai fantastically well. Early home guards were picked up. He realized what his job was in teamfights, which is to basically TP in, get Twisted Advance no matter what on Tristana, and you win the game. Other than that, when you can't do that, Gamers2 did a good job kiting back. They just played in choke points and stepped back every time, allowing SK Gaming to funnel into that point, and just they couldn't reach the damage, so their front line just melted eventually. So later in the game, I think Gamers2 had the better approach to the game, but early they just left a lot of windows for opportunity for SK Gaming.
Yeah, we'll see if SK can adapt going into Game 2, as it is Gamers2 is up 1-0. We also have an update in the fight for Worlds 2015. Spoiler alert if you don't want to know that yet. But over in China, the Invictus Gaming just beat QG 3-0 for the third and final seat from the LPL. And they'll join LGD and Edward Gaming over there. And in Korea's LCK, KT Rolster beat Jin Air 3-1. Sad Plane to secure that region's third seed. And they'll be competing alongside the SK Telecom T1 and the Crew Tigers here in Europe. Well, shaping up good.
Makes me a sad man to not see Swift.
Well, Kakao is there, so
Kakao definitely jumped in. Because initially, when IG plays against QG, Swift completely out-jungled Kakao, and I was like, yeah, good jungler, let's see him.
2 games.
2 games. Arguably, 30 did decently.
Maybe
but then,
3 games, but now it's on Kakao.
Then Kakao started playing like Kakao does, and then suddenly IG's going to Worlds.
I believe all the old coast... KT Roaster, that was the one. Colster was a bit of a mix of it all, with Ryu, Kakao, and everything. Now going to Worlds.
It's Worlds.
It is Worlds. We need to take a break to as SK look to tie things up in Game 2. As we go, we'll hear from Freddy about his former teammate in G2's bot lane.
I think Jesse as a player, it's not necessarily about the role, but I think he prefers to play safer champions in lane. I think on AD carry, this meta has been really good for him with like Sivir, and Kallista's obviously really strong in lane. He always said that he enjoyed AD carry more, so if you enjoy a role, then generally you do better at it. So we're gonna have to see how he goes against Candy Panda, because that's gonna be interesting.